Welcome, I'm Hugh Massey, the CEO and founder of DNA Behaviour International. In today's webinar, I'm going to talk to you more about the additional business DNA report elements based on the factor scores. By utilising these additional report elements, you will be able to apply the natural behaviour insights that I've addressed in the webinar so far more easily. These additional report elements, in essence, combine a number of the behavioural factors to make them more easy to interpret, and they are directed against the common questions that we get asked. So, for example, in our workplace operations report, we look at the business risks that can be caused by the failure to manage behaviour. So, for example, if the person's strongest trait is take charge, a risk could be that they will tend to set unrealistic goals. They will not consult others and may reject others' opinions. Whereas their opposite, who is the cooperative, could withhold their true opinions, may be hesitant in making decisions, and be too dependent on others. The stronger that the person's take charge or cooperative trait score is, the more true this is likely to be. And so in reviewing this table, what we do in the report is we provide the insight on the person's two strongest behavioural traits. So, for example, for me, I am skeptical. So this would be highlighted. I might get in the way of ideas, resist delegating and not be transparent, and maybe intimidating. And I'm a pioneer. Might be overly focused on success, too driven, and not properly recognise the resources needed to achieve the goals. So each of us will have two stronger traits that we report on in the workplace operations report. Then we provide on page 3 of the workplace operations report the DNA Ultimate Performance Guide, where we highlight the person's 5 key performance strengths and 3 performance struggles. And then there's the performance environment keys. And what we do is, for the strongest factor, we draw out the 3 strongest traits, and then for the second factor, the 2 strongest strengths from this second factor, the 2 strongest strengths there. And then for the struggles, we pull out the two struggles from the strongest trait, and 1 struggle from the second strongest trait. And then for the performance environment keys, which is more about how the person wants to be related to, we pull out 3 communication keys from the strongest trait, and then 2 communication keys or performance environment keys from the second strongest trait there. And what we really encourage is that the individual focuses on these strengths and struggles and performance environment keys, as this will help unlock them for performance. But it also, for you as a facilitator, provides a quick snapshot of how the person's going to make decisions, how they're going to operate, and how they're going to use their talents, and what's the best operating environment for them to be in. So we do encourage that people use their Ultimate Performance Guide regularly, focus on their strengths, and manage their struggles to ensure that they're not having a negative impact on others, and to recognise that the struggle is really a strength overused, and trust will come from having a greater level of behavioural awareness. And again, it's better to be operating in an environment which is conducive to using your talents. So in this table here is the work-life behavioural attitudes, which is built on person's two strongest behavioral factors. So there's the pioneering factor and the skeptical factor. And what we can see here is the person's philosophy, workplace approach, financial attitude, goal-setting approach, activity, passions, values, workplace motivations, their strength, blind spots, and the communication. Then there's a phrase here for each of the two factors. So you can see for Chris Cotton, he's a pretty goal-driven person, but he'll be protective of his ideas. He's very progressive in the sense that he wants to move things forward. This is really his pioneering nature there. He wants to be directly involved in the activities. He's going to be a little bit more controlling. He's going to be thinking about things more critically. He's going to be wanting impact. He's going to ask a lot of questions. And as much as there's a drive forward, there will also be some guardedness and fear. So that provides quite a good picture of Chris, and then we can see how he wants to operate in the workplace. So he's got a strong desire to make decisions, countered against he's not going to be that relational. So what we've done here is that we provide each person with a high, low, and medium score, and the high scores are those that are 70% and over against the rest of the population. The medium scores between 31% and 69%, and the low scores are under 30% and under. This correlates to the T-score framework that we already have. So there are 12 insights here that all help in bringing out how a person gets results and builds relationships. And this graphic here provides a little bit more insight as to what the high and low scores will mean. So someone's desire to make decisions means that they're influencing, setting the direction, very confident, as opposed to if they're lower on that one, they're more accepting, agreeable, they'll take direction, underestimate themselves. We also, in the workplace operations report, measure a person's propensity to take risk. This is very important for understanding the decision-making style and how much risk somebody is taking inside the business in making decisions. Of course, there are business situations where it's necessary for the person to take risks, and as long as they're prepared to own that, that's good. But there's also times to be conservative. And this is always interesting around boards and teams or C-suite groups to see who's prepared to drive forward with taking risks and who's being a bit more calculated and conservative. It can provide you insights as to where the blockages are inside a team. And then the leader teammate compatibility matrix is really bringing out from a relationship perspective how each of the styles will connect with each other in terms of building a relationship and what degree of modification is required. So for example, a community builder working with an initiator, there would need to be a lot more modification required over the longer term for that relationship to work. They may get along very well, particularly if the community builder is following the initiator, but there is what's important to recognize is that there are big differences in the styles, and somewhere that may catch up in terms of the engagement. And on the flip side of that, an initiator working with an initiator, they generally don't need to modify their behavior too much, but again, they do need to watch the turf factor there. But if they're both direct communicators and that comes easily, they can communicate on those terms, and they don't need to adapt too much how they communicate. We've also developed a business DNA talent report that uses a lot of the information that I've already shown you and presents it both on the right-hand side and the left-hand side as in terms of the performance success factors and performance risks that a person has. So there are 10 items here. These are effectively already reported on in the workplace operations report. but we've lifted them out and put them into to a one-page talent report, so that when you might be meeting with a particular person, you can get the snapshot highlights very quickly as to, for example, how they make decisions, get results, pursue goals. So you can see that here Chris Coddington's pretty driven. It would be usual that a person will have a number of high scores on the right-hand side, and then they'll have some behaviours that are getting in the way of their success. And there only needs to be one behaviour or performance risk that potentially gets in the way to undo a person, and so it's important to recognise that having 9 out of 10 doesn't mean high, doesn't mean that the person's necessarily going to be successful. It's about how they manage this overall on a longer term basis. And we break the performance success factors and risks down between the results and relationship factors, so or traits here, and so you can see for Chris Coddington, he's quite results driven, but then he's somewhat less relational there. And there's the definitions. So in the next segment of the training, I'm going to cover the case studies, and these are really exercises for you to do to understand different behavioural styles and to learn how you would guide them towards performance improvement.